Over.
Cool.
Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
So, tonight we're going to talk about What If episode, I think we're on 5 now?
5, I think, yes.
Yeah. And Titans episode 7. It's going to be more of an informal conversation than we usually have, but we will, as always, give our spoiler-free thoughts about the episodes, and then we'll get into more spoiler talk and also maybe some predictions for the future based upon what happened in the episode. So, Colin, what did you think of the 5th episode of What If? Simply titled What If Zombies?
Yeah, I mean that basically summed it up for the most part. I mean, it was a really action-packed, gut-wrenching, like all the emotions, just like from highs to lows to depressing. Mm-hmm. It was almost like it was Infinity War all over again, and some parts of it was just so depressing and so sad. Mm-hmm. And I just think that they're just kind of touching all of the kind of the emotional points throughout, much better than it was last week in terms of, because the Doctor Strange episode would definitely just kind of tore at the heartstrings. This was kind of like a lot of different types of emotions, and it was just a thrill ride. I just think that, you know,
Colin, I think we lost you there. The last thing we heard you say is my initial reaction, and then your screen froze. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh geez. So yeah. I think that yeah. So basically, my initial reaction is that it's definitely, I would say, in my opinion, better than the previous episode. And they're just kind of raising the bar in terms of Marvel being just consistently good about all their material. And for this one, it was just kind of a range of emotions. I just felt like there were times in which I felt I was in an Infinity War all over again, watching that again. Mm-hmm. And there were times where it was just, it was depressing, it was sad, it was triumphant, it was heroic. And it was just overall, I think they're just got it down to a science for the most part in terms of just the brilliant storytelling, the animation, the action that's involved with it. And they did it within 30 minutes, which is really, really impressive stuff. And so, you know, if you haven't gotten on What If, I mean, some people think that they don't really like the animation too much, but yeah, it was there's definitely some iterations. I think we talked about it in the chat, mm-hmm. To some of the animations that we've seen with Invincible as mm-hmm. well. So it's very similar to that type of theme in some ways. So, but we'll get into it later on.
Yeah, I definitely liked the episode. I don't know if it's as bloody or as difficult to watch because it's still on Disney Plus. So if there is, even though we're talking about zombies, if there is gore, there's gore in the way that they usually have gore in superhero properties. If people are dying, unless it's like the Guardian, the Suicide Squad movie that just came out recently. If people are dying, they're usually not human, or yeah. So it's you can still technically watch this with children, but some really graphic things happen to the zombies. So maybe older children, maybe middle school, high school children. It was a good episode. I think I liked it a lot. I don't know that it was that scary. Maybe that's because it is a Disney property and they're never going to get as scary as you would say on I don't know, HBO Max or something like that. But it was still fun. So and there are zombie movies in that vein. So there's like the Shaun of the Dead kind of movies, and they're also like Zombieland. And this took some inspiration from Zombieland, pretty much at the beginning of this episode as well. So it was more of a zombie comedy, which also sometimes has its scary parts as well, or its spooky parts as well. It definitely hit a whole lot of zombie tropes within the episode, and yeah, it was very well written, and you got to see characters that have popped up in the MCU before, of course, because all the characters that show up in these episodes are characters that show up in the MCU before, but they're working together in a way that you never see. These are pairings or groupings that you didn't get to see in the in the movies, which is interesting to see because you always kind of wonder, how would they work together, how would they interact to accomplish a common goal, and you got to see that in this what if scenario. So it was a really good episode. I don't know that I liked it as better than the last week. I don't know. Maybe it was just my sensibilities. The bleakness at the end.
That was something. I was just like, oh man, that's why I mentioned Infinity War. So I was like, that's very depressing. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. I think that I definitely like I like the episode though, and I think that they're pushing the envelope and they're trying to be as creative and as interesting as they can be with these stories, because there's no consequences, right? They can kill off anyone they want to, because they can just start over in a different universe next week. So. With different circumstances, so
that's very Rick and Morty of them. Actually, you do that.
Yeah. So it was a good episode. So we should start to kind of get into why the episode was interesting and good. But to do that, we need to start spoiling the episode. So at this point, if you haven't seen the episode, go see the episode because we both like it. It's really good. I think you'll have some fun with it. And come back and join us for the spoiler conversation. So, after this point, spoiler alert. Alright. So, I don't have images this week, so where do you want to start when talking about this episode?
I just think that the whole premise at the very beginning of how this kind of came about, it reminded me a lot of I Am Legend. The Will Smith one. I think there's like older iterations of I Am Legend as well. But the whole kind of bleakness of dystopia and what we're living in right now as well with the pandemic, it really reminded me of that. And that's kind of like the depressing part, and just the whole premise of it, just like that Janet Van Dyne was the carrier, was patient zero basically. Right. And then there's just the Wasp actually. So that Ant-Man is definitely not probably near the top of terms of MCU movies, but again, it makes it a very good kind of introduction to what if this happened with in Ant-Man and the Wasp rather than what happened in the MCU movie Ant-Man and the Wasp. So that was very interesting in itself. The second thing was having that Grand Central scene, which reminded me of the Avengers scene in Grand Central, and it also reminded me because I lived in New York for a few years, so I visited Grand. It was very eerie in those moments because I visited that station like every day when I went to school there in New York, and then. The third thing was just the ending. I was just they had some hope and some optimism, and then you saw zombie Thanos, and I was like, oh man, dang, they're basically good, and the Watcher just sat there not doing anything about zombie Thanos. It's like, oh, that's not good. And who knows what's going to happen with those three, with Ant-Man and with Scott and Spider-Man and T'Challa. So.
You mentioned Ant-Man and the Wasp not being like top. I think I just now redid my list of MCU movies because I just saw Shang-Chi, and it's near the bottom of my list. But Marvel keeps trying to make it very important because it pivotal. What happened in that? If you didn't watch that movie, you're a little bit lost.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on.
And Endgame, and also a lot of the other multiverse stuff. So you have to watch it, even though it's not super great. I mean, it's not a terrible movie, but if you're ranking MCU movies, if I'm ranking MCU movies, it's near the bottom for me. Mm-hmm. So going back to that, because you can kind of do. It's funny. One of the jokes in that movie was Scott saying, "Are you guys just putting quantum in front of everything?" So they're basically it's a quantum virus, and you can use that to tell anything or say it or to explain anything, and that's sort of what they did in Endgame, and that's sort of what they're doing here. So Janet has a quantum virus. She gives it to Hank. Hank and Janet come back, and they start the plague on Earth. So yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't sure. Do you think that it wasn't clear to me that the zombies were inside of Wakanda or outside of Wakanda? It looked like they were outside Wakanda to me, but they were. But like the last shot, like the shot of the force field, it looked like they were outside. But the final shot, it looked like he had the city of Wakanda, the Wakandan city in his backgrounds, like he was inside. So it was unclear to me whether or not he got inside or not. So I don't know what.
Knowing Thanos, I would not put that. Yeah, I would not put it past him if he got inside somehow. And yeah. It was depressing. It was very depressing. Definitely.
I mean, it was depressing. I mean, he is the potential of him destroying the universe, whereas last week there was the universe was actually destroyed. But yes, I really enjoyed the way that they started the beginning of the episode as well. It was basically the beginning of Infinity War. So Bruce comes back and he's and he crashes through this and comes into him like he did in the movie, but no one's there. He goes out into the street and we get Ebony Maw and Call Obsidian on the street just like in the movie, but then everything changes. Well, everything changes after he crashes through the ceiling and no one's there to greet him. But yeah, it's it's interesting how they're using Tony Stark in these episodes because he doesn't really get to speak, but he's definitely always there. He also Captain America doesn't really get to speak. I guess they're the two heads of the Avengers, but they found how to write very interesting and compelling stories over the last 6 episodes without censoring them. I know that there's an episode coming up where Tony's going to be censored because Tony and Killmonger is going to be censored.
Right.
So but yeah, Tony's already a zombie at this point. And what's also interesting, and I think this is the case, and I haven't read the comics, the Marvel zombie comics. I just read articles about them. Apparently, that's the premise. The premise they have here is the same premise that they have in the comics, is that they keep their intelligence or keep some of their intelligence. Actually, in the comics, I believe they can actually speak. Whereas here they're not speaking, so they have reduced intelligence, but they still have some intelligence, and they also have their abilities as well to a certain extent as well. Now Hawkeye isn't as good a shot as he is when he isn't a zombie because he missed, I think, in the subway, but in general they have their abilities and they're using those abilities to eat people. So
my gosh. like Wong eating like had a chunk of like I don't know who it was. He had a chunk of
it was
like
It's Cull Obsidian's arm.
oh boy.
He was eating a chunk of Cull Obsidian's arm. So yeah.
And then like Tony, I think Tony got decapitated. Was he decapitated?
No. It was Wong. It was Wong. So Wong opened used his sling ring to open up a portal behind behind Bruce, and then Clokey came to the rescue to help out Bruce, and he pulled Wong back through the portal, and then when the portal closed, it cut off Wong's head. So yeah, that's what happened. So
oh boy,
Wong got killed. Yeah. Wong got killed in a similar way that he cut off Cull Obsidian's arm in the Infinity War movie. So that was the first like very gory death. I mean, I guess them eating Cull Obsidian and Maw was sort of gory, but you saw that from a distance. Like Bruce was like, "What's happened?" What? Yeah, but the head popped off right next to him, and we
that was not cool. And then like I don't know, Tony died a terrible death too. I don't remember how he died, but it was pretty gruesome too.
I don't remember Tony actually dying. I think what happened was that Clokey got him out of there with the help of Spider-Man. Spider-Man got them out, and then they went to their headquarters, which basically is a bunch of subway cars that were suspended between some buildings. So I guess I don't think anyone else is as strong as he is on the team there. No, I assume he got them up there by himself. Like so we have Okoye, Sharon Carter, we have Happy Hogan, Kurt, I think his name is the
David
Dashmalkian from Ant-Man, for Ant-Man and Boss. He plays a Eastern European guy, and he does some foreshadowing later on in the episode that I, as soon as he said it, I was like,
oh no,
yeah. So
we also have Bucky too.
Bucky as well, but yeah, Bucky isn't strong enough to. So I guess Peter got them up there himself somehow. I mean, he has super strength. So their makeshift headquarters is a bunch of cars because the zombies can't walk out to them. But although Tony could fly up to them, so if he wanted to get up there, he could get he could get up there.
We forget about Hope as well. Hope is kind of a big character in this episode.
Oh yeah,
and then because Hope was one of the original Avengers actually, and it was great to kind of see that she was taking much more of a leadership role in this episode. Well, it was some ways.
It was Janet that was one of the original Avengers, not Hope. In the comics.
Oh, okay. You're right.
So yeah, I forgot about Hope, and yeah, Hope was one of the main characters in this episode, and she actually could have picked up a bunch of cars and put them in the air so he could wet them up. So that's probably how they got it done. So yeah, when she got using her the reverse powers of the pin particles, so because she does that later on in the episode,
right?
So yeah, so they have the nod to Zombieland when Peter does his introduction and his rules to the zombie apocalypse. It's very very similar.
The humorous part of the whole episode, the more humorous stuff.
Yeah, I forget the name of the guy in Zombieland. I think it was Oklahoma or Dallas or something like that. Or they all
don't remember.
They all had city names, but I forget what city. The guy played by Jesse Eisenberg. He was the one. It was basically he was doing his Jesse Eisenberg's zombie explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that, and then they found this. Then they found a message that maybe there's a cure, and it was at Camp Lehigh. Camp Lehigh, which we've seen many times now. First time we saw it was in the first Avenger with Captain America: The First Avenger. Then we saw it again in Captain America: Winter Soldier after he went back, and he was in Armin Zola was his brain was kind of put in the computer. We also saw it in Endgame because they went back in time and went there as well.
Yeah.
And we saw it, of course, in the first episode of What If. So we go back to Camp Lehigh a lot. So they have to get there though, and they don't have transportation. I mean, they have a car, a car, which they use to make a very funny sight gag kill of a zombie, because they drive to Grand Central Station to take a train, because I assumed like they don't have a ship, because all the Avengers that actually could fly a ship were turned, I guess. And
they were in San Francisco, and all the Avengers kind of like died basically.
Yeah.
With the exception of T'Challa, basically, everyone died.
So
became zombies,
and they can't really drive on the road because all the zombies are on the road. So I guess the plan is to take the subway to New Jersey, which is I guess makes sense, sort of.
Although it doesn't make sense in real life because they don't go out of Grand Central actually.
Right.
If people live in New York, that they don't go. The ones to Jersey, it rarely does. It usually goes out of Penn Station. But anyways,
but
semantics.
But Penn Station is an ugly station compared to Grand Central Station, which is probably why they chose Grand Central Station. It's also like you said, it showed up in the Avengers movie as well. So they were trying to in this universe, you can get to New Jersey from Grand Central Station. So they split up, even though Peter says we shouldn't split up. Okoye has an interesting joke about American
reality shows,
which was cool. and then they have like, because they broke up. There's a bunch of gruesome deaths later on. So like So Falcon, it's like Falcon in the main MCU universe gets to become Captain America. In this universe, he gets cut in half by Okoye. It's like
by his supposed best friend. By his supposed best friend, basically.
Well, what do you mean by Okoye?
His frenemy. It was Okoye who killed. Okay,
It was Okoye who cut him in half. It was Bucky. It was Bucky.
Like,
it was Bucky.
Like a snide remark after.
It was Bucky who didn't care. But at this point, you have to remember that this was like before anything that happened in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So they don't like each other. So that was the response that you would expect from him. So Okoye cuts Sam in half. Then Happy gets killed or by Hank. Sorry, not by Hank. By Clint. Clint shoots an arrow through his shoulder and pulls him back, and turns him. So Happy is wearing Tony's wristwatch repulsor, which we saw in Civil War. Yep. We saw that in Civil War. So he's using that and making sound effects. And even when he gets zombified, he's saying "blam."
That was really creative. That actually was really cool.
Yeah,
he's still making the sounds even though he's a zombie. That's like wow. That's really comedic. Good timing. So
Sharon uses that against him, and he shoots Happy in the head. We don't see his head explode, but we expect that's what happens. His head explodes. So Sharon gets away. And while Peter is trying to get the train to work with Hope and who else is on the train with her?
Well, it was
sorry, Bruce and Hope.
Bruce was there, and also David David's character.
I think it's Kurt.
Polka Dot Man.
I think his name is Kurt, right?
Kurt. Yeah.
So Kurt, Bruce, and Hope are on the train, and Peter's outside trying to give it a bunch of potential energy. Basically, he tells them to put the brake on, and he's going to basically slingshot the thing by them taking off the brake. So that works, and they get away from the zombie hordes, but
Sharon died though before they.
No. They escape, and they all get on the train, but they go through a tunnel, and then we find that Captain America is on the train. So they're already moving. They're already moving when Captain America gets on the train.
You're right.
So Captain America gets on the train, and he's the one who takes out Sharon. And turns her. And that's when we get the Bucky zombie cap fight.
Right.
And Bucky wins. He catches the shield just like he does in Winter Soldier, and he uses the shield to cut him in half. And he said, "I guess this is the end of the line," because another callback to all what they said. I'm with you until the end of the line, which is
depressing.
Depressing, and also I guess funny a little bit because they're also on a train, and when you're talking about end of the line, it's a train. Yeah. So Hope flies into zombie Janet's mouth and explodes her and gets her guts all over everywhere. This is what I'm talking about, where it could be like as bad as Invincible if it was human guts, but all the blood is black, and they always do. They're doing this to show that if it was real. It's like earlier when they blew up the Hulk and he turned into a mist instead of turning into a bunch of green guts, which is what you would expect would actually happen. So she gets Sharon all over her, and I guess when she does that, she also gets nicked. So we get another zombie trope when someone is bitten or cut, and that they're going to slowly turn. That shows up in every single version of zombie lore. Or
it was also in Blade as well.
It was Blade. It was
Blade. The first one, I think, because the female lead got bitten, I think, and was slowly trying to turn into a vampire.
Yeah.
At that time, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So then we get a little bit of heartfelt stuff. I think we get a nod to Uncle Ben, and the internet says that this is the first time we've actually heard him mention Uncle Ben, because he never mentions it in any of the movies he's in. He's been in 5 movies now. He's been in Infinity War, Endgame. His
Homecoming,
two movies, and then in Civil War, but he's never mentioned Uncle Ben. So he mentions that he tries to be upbeat because he's lost so many people. So that was a nice little part of this episode as well. And then Hope uses her powers to get them the rest of the way, because the potential energy that Peter built up eventually runs out. It only gets them so far. It doesn't get them all the way to New Jersey. So, but there's a field of zombies, which is another zombie trope. Field of zombies you have to get through is another zombie trope.
World War Z. All those. Yeah.
So she makes herself bigger, and they walk over. She walks over the field, and then she collapses before and I think she turns at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The end of this episode, they definitely went in a different way than I expected at the end of this. That was a lot of plot to get through. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and then at the end of this episode, it even takes a completely different turn. After that, especially after seeing WandaVision and all that Wanda went through for her love for Vision. So they get there and they notice that the zombies aren't coming through the fence, even though there's a giant hole in the fence. And this is when Kurt says Baba Yaga, which is basically a witch in whatever Eastern European, because Baba Yaga he said in the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, but also you hear it in John Wick. They call him Baba Yaga. So I immediately thought witch, and I was like, oh, Scarlet Witch is here. But we see Vision first. So I forgot about that until for a little while. until the other shoe drops. So Vision found a cure. Apparently, the Mind Stone can cure the virus, and he actually saved Scott. Well, he saved what's left of Scott, which
Yeah.
was just a head.
Futurama.
Yeah,
There.
Futurama had basically the Nixon bottle.
Yep.
That's also something from the comics as well. I think Janet was saved, like her head was saved, and she was given like a robot body. So they they have hope that things are going to get better, and Bucky starts snooping around looking for transport, looking for a ship, and Vision say, "You're not going to find what you think." And I don't know what that means, but it's definitely ominous for him to say that. So we come upon T'Challa being snacked upon basically to keep Wanda alive.
That was disturbing. That was really disturbing. He had one leg left. It's like that was very disturbing.
I mean, but I guess he was feeding him to her slowly because he was cut off at the knee. So it's not like he did take giant chunks out of him. Half of a leg is a lot of meat, but he could have given a lot more of him to her. Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to know how long he was been cutting on T'Challa. Because it's obvious that he's been doing it for a little while. Mm-hmm. So he accidentally breaks out Wanda, like cracks her containment where he was containing her, and then she goes crazy. After they realize what's happening, and they turn on Vision, and all the while Scott is making dad jokes, which is yeah. I think he was probably the funniest part of this episode because he was making inappropriate jokes at very inappropriate times. Yeah, and he said it was because the craziness of the situation. I mean, he's basically just a talking head now. So I guess this is how he's processing the craziness without with quips and jokes. I wonder. So like in live action stuff, you can take a run at something and they'll just keep the funniest things, especially when you get a comedian like Paul Rudd. But I don't know what's the case. I don't know what the case is with animation. I mean, do they let him record a bunch of things and then take his funniest jokes when he's in the booth, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how they actually do that. That's very interesting because, but by the same token, the stuff that I've watched in animation, there's not really like kind of jokesy type of things that I like comedy types of stuff that's happened in the animation that I've seen. It's definitely more. I mean, basically my exposure is the DC animated universe, and there's rarely any jokes there. I mean, in those films.
I mean, there's some jokes there, but I'm thinking of animation writ large. So like we can talk about like Shrek. Shrek is a comedic movie, and there's lots of jokes in there, and they're all like professional comedians in that movie as well. I wonder if when they have a professional comedian, like not even going further back, you talk about Aladdin. I can't imagine everything that Robin Williams said in that movie was scripted, because that's not how his mind works. No. That's not how his mind works. He just starts going off on random tangents. So I think they just went with the funniest stuff, and that's what showed up in the movie. And I think that's probably what they did with Scott's jokes here. He just said a bunch of random stuff. Paul Rudd said a bunch of random stuff, and they took some of the funnier things, and some of it was probably scripted, but
most probably that's going to be the case if you're looking at that.
Yeah. Then we get, I guess, the quick escapes scene from Lehigh, because Wanda's going crazy because she's unleashed, and she's not any less powerful than she was when she was a regular human,
right?
And we see how the lengths that they go to for each other. She tortured a town, and he basically cut up a man for her. So yeah,
Dangerous love.
I can understand how she's going to be a villain in the next movie.
Yeah.
They definitely go to extremes for each other.
Yeah.
And she's going to go to extremes for her children in the next movie. So
Uh-oh.
we shall see what how extreme that is. But he tries to repent and takes out the Mind Stone to give to the team so they can try to broadcast to through Wakanda, because the only place that they could broadcast that much information or globally is Wakanda technologically. So they find a Quinjet, they leave, or they try to leave, but I think Bucky stays back to fight Wanda,
Yep.
and she like throws him
Like miles and
like a
miles.
football field,
Yeah.
football, the length of a football field or longer or further.
Yeah.
I know he has super soldier serum, but I don't think he survived that.
I don't think he's gonna survive that.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
yeah. And then Bruce stays behind as well, and he actually gets the Hulk to cooperate, because they could be the hero now. I guess he gets over his embarrassment of being beat down by Thanos, and he comes out, and he goes that. Then we see a very interesting like superhero fight that you usually see in the comics, like the Hulk versus the Scarlet Witch, and I really don't know who wins that, because the
Mm.
Hulk just gets madder and madder and stronger as like things get like thrown at him, but she's very very powerful. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who wins that. They might crack the side that part of the Earth with their fight.
Yeah,
I
but also could be like another one of those moments like from the last film, last couple of episodes back, where he turns into mist. She'll come up with some type of dark magic and just like blows him up from the inside or something like that.
maybe
Maybe.
maybe
Maybe.
and she has their. I mean, like I said, they're. It seems like they have their powers and they have some level of intelligence, but they don't have their full faculties. So maybe that occurs to her, maybe it doesn't. But anyway, we don't get to see we only get to see the beginning of that fight, which was interesting enough.
Right.
But and
Right.
then they zoom off to Wakanda, and then when they get a very bleak ending, and we get a few more words from T'Challa, which is somewhat ominous and poignant, given that the words that they choose to have him say is that in my culture, death is not the end, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of. I mean, given that the Chadwick Wilson is dead, it's died last year. It was a very weird, I guess poignant, but also weird thing to hear him say, or one of the
Yeah.
last things to hear him say.
Yeah, but he'd also said that in Civil War when his father died, actually.
Yes, I
So
know, but this is
yeah.
one of the last things he recorded.
Right,
Last,
exactly.
last things that we're going to hear him say in film or whatchamacallit. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and then like I said, they get to Wakanda, or like we said earlier, they get to Wakanda, and we don't. Like I said, I don't know whether or not he's taken over or not, but it's not good because he has all the other stones, and I don't know how he got the time stone, because the time stone was still in New York, and both of his people are dead. All right, so maybe he went there to get it himself or whatever, because the time stone was still around the neck of Doctor Strange, and they just left New York.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he went back to New York when they were in New Jersey. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
he has all the stones except for the Mind Stone, and they're flying the Mind Stone to him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, uh,
Yeah, very bleak ending, and overall, just yeah. I mean, some fun moments, definitely, definitely. I would say it's probably my favorite episode so far. I mean, the Doctor Strange one was very good too. I mean, not to say that the other, and also the T'Challa going to space one was really good too. I mean, they've just been going really. It's been going really well with What If. I think that the storytelling's been really awesome. I think that just the different types of interpretations of the characters and the interactions have been very, very solid. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to what comes next. In terms, I think there's like we're halfway through, right? I think I believe.
This is 5. You said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're more than halfway through because there's only going to be 9 episodes. They made 10, but they're going to keep one of them for the beginning of the next season.
Got it.
So there's only 9 episodes, so we're past the halfway point. And I mean they haven't disappointed the entire time. So it's great. It's great, and I'm looking forward to the last couple episodes. I know that there's a Thor episode coming up, and I thought that was going to be this week because that's what the internet said it was going to be. But I think on Wednesday they actually preview what it's going to be on the Twitter account, the Marvel Twitter account. So if you're interested in what the next episode is going to be, just follow the Marvel Twitter account because they kind of spoiled what was going to happen on Tuesday, which was a lot of notice. But if you're really interested, you can find out then. Then so there's a Thor episode, there's a Killmonger, Tony Stark episode, and then there's an episode where there's obviously a team up. So there's 4 more episodes, there's a team up between the multiverses because we see the evil or the evil-ish or whatever the Doctor Strange that destroyed his universe.
Doctor Strange.
The dark Doctor Strange.
The darker version.
The one who destroyed his universe. We see him arrayed with other heroes like Star-Lord, T'Challa, and Captain Carter fighting against something, and maybe it's going to be I don't know. Do you think it might be this virus? Do you think that maybe Thanos, instead of snapping people out of existence, snapped himself to other universes so he could eat like him and his zombie horde could eat other existences? I mean that would be
that's a good theory. I think that I've seen some stuff online that it might be Ultron with the Infinity Stones with the Gauntlet. So that's what's been rumored. I don't know if that is the case, but I've also seen that, I saw a Hyundai commercial like about 2 days ago, and he was Ultron with the Gauntlet, and his robot army was pretty prominent in that what if thing. So I have a suspicion it's going to be that, but that's car commercial. So they've been
interesting. Can he even wield the Gauntlet? I mean the Infinity Stones. I mean, does he have a soul? I know.
Yeah,
Vision
I'm
has
not
a
quite
soul.
sure as to how that's gonna. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been done I think it's been done in the Ultimate comic series that Ultron did have exposure to the Gauntlet. I think. Okay. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah.
That would be interesting. I don't know. I mean, what would he want? Seeing as how he was trying to wipe out the Earth anyway, what would he want that wouldn't be pretty much the same as what Thanos wanted, which was destroy.
Yeah, but I think that if I recall from Age of Ultron, he wanted basically humanity to be wiped out, and all of humanity wiped out. But basically, that was his moment of peace in terms of like artificial intelligence taking over the Earth. I think that was basically his premise for Age of Ultron.
So instead of
slightly different from half the universe.
Okay, instead of half of the universe, he wants to get rid of all life and replace it with synthetic life. I guess so. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that could be his goal. But I mean, if he has the Gauntlet, I'm not sure how they're going to stop him. Because if you only have half, if you have half, you have at least half of the people around to stop Thanos or undo what Thanos does. But if he gets the snap off, everyone's gone. So I guess we'll see.
But I think that the snap itself could be based on whatever they kind of put in their minds. Because if you recall that, when Tony Stark did it and when the Hulk did it, it was for different reasons rather than with Thanos. I think it was just the power of it, and then I think
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is though, if Ultron's desire is that everyone dies, that happens immediately, and then there's no one there to undo what he did.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So,
yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah, I really like the episode, but I guess we should move on to the next thing, which is Titans, episode 7. So, what did you think of this episode 7 of Titans?
Yeah, I didn't get the title at first. It was like 51%. And I was like, what is that? Because like in the past couple of episodes they've had like title characters being in the 6 episodes. So being new to Titans this year, I didn't know what that meant. But then, of course, as you went on and watched the episode, you figured out what it was. Again, I think that this episode was much more solid than last week's. I know we talked endlessly about the flaws of last week's episode. I think this episode was much more tighter, and the storytelling was much better, and they were able to kind of flesh out characters that we had kind of like said, hey, they should actually do more with them. And actually they did. For this episode, they did. So I was really encouraged by the fact that they did that with those characters that we talked about we want to see more of. And yeah, overall, I think it was a pretty solid episode. And again, it's kind of like an up and down type of thing. So what does that mean? Maybe like next week it's going to be bad. I don't know. But just for the sake of this episode, I think, yeah, pretty solid overall from beginning to end. I don't think they used any flashbacks this time. But I was surprised that they did not kind of pick up the thread that was presented at the end of last week's episode when we talked about it. So that was kind of interesting to me, but overall it still worked in terms of storytelling.
Sorry, I forget. So last week was so jumbled. I don't even remember what was the.
Oh, last week was about Tim's parents getting shot, and then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that they're going to deal with that a little bit later on, and we'll find out what's happening with Tim. I like this because they've only really touched on Tim in the first episode in this episode, so Tim is probably going to be in the back half of the season. We'll get more dealing with Tim more in the back half of the season. I like this episode, but like you said, the show. Is very frustrating because they go back and forth with the quality every week, and unfortunately, you don't know what you're going to get when you start watching an episode, and you hope that the writing is as good as it was this week. Or as good as it was earlier on in the season. But you don't know what you're going to get. Last week was so annoying that, like I said, we spent a lot of time talking about it, just explaining all the things that are annoying. Our conversation this week will probably be shorter because we can just talk about what happened and not necessarily why it was ridiculous that it happened. But I don't know. Like we didn't have as much time to do pre-production on this stream as we usually do. What I wanted to do was go back in the previous episodes and see who the head writer was, because there's usually how the writing rooms go by these shows. They have a head writer who's overseeing the overall arc, but at least each episode has there's a writing credit. So I wanted to see if like the episodes that didn't make any sense, like there was a particular writer that was assigned those episodes. But I didn't get a chance to do that. I will do that next week though, because I can't account for the unevenness of this show, but for that. And even if that's the case, if they're giving it to someone and they're not writing their episode well, it's really the head writer's job to make it better, to like because that either he or she is in charge of the overall story, so they should have revise those episodes to make them make more sense. But anyway, this episode was good. I like that, like you said, more characters got fleshed out a little bit. I like that they had the characters do less ridiculous things. I like that there are internal conflicts that they had with each other. The things that they were saying to each other made sense. Like they weren't just griping at each other just to gripe at each other. I appreciated that as well. So yeah, it was a good episode. They keep doing this like I now want to see what's going to happen. Like last week I was like, I guess I have to see what's going to happen. Now I want to see what's going to happen, and then I it's annoying. It's annoying to me.
Yes, I agree.
It's annoying. So with that, we have to, I guess, talk about the specifics of the episode. In which case, we're going to spoil it. So, go on to the episode because it was a good episode.
It was actually good.
Or if you've been watching these and you see that the season is uneven, maybe wait until the end of the season, and then you can skip the ones that you don't need to watch. So yeah, but going forward, spoilers ahead. We're gonna start spoiling the episode. So where do you want to start? We don't have to start in any particular order.
Okay.
We don't have to recap the entire episode, but what do you?
Sure, but yeah, a couple of things. I think that what I mentioned in the non-spoiler part about the characters that I really wanted to see, which was Koriand'r, which was Blackfire, and Komand'r, they were all featured a lot more in this episode, which was great. And you get to see kind of them dealing with the mob lady boss, and that was pretty pretty intense stuff. And also just the dialogue between Blackfire and Starfire about the exposition that was given as to why that was the case. And so now okay, this is a great thing that she kind of explained as to what was the circumstances behind their parents' death. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it didn't make sense a few episodes back when they broke her out. Now it's like, oh, yeah, this is the reason why. And and now they kind of at least warmed up to her a little bit more, and Konamd'r's warmed up to her a little bit more. There seems to be some type of romantic sparks between Komand'r and Blackfire, which is really great. I will definitely go for that. But yeah, just I think concentrating it on those three characters were I think it's definitely a good choice. And they're just, I mean, it was just so great to kind of at least see them prominently featured and not having to go back to the Bat family, which is kind of like a little convoluted, just like what we talked about last week. Barbara Gordon making those decisions and stuff like that. It didn't make any sense. And so I think that they should kind of de-emphasize them, which they did this week.
Sorry. Yeah, so
it's okay.
My mic was off. So the emphasis on Gar, not Gar. So Komand'r, Koriand'r, and Blackfire, and I still can't pronounce Blackfire's real name. Was good, but I like the fact that they split the team up into three groups. So they Gar was off by himself, and he got stuff to do, which was interesting. He went down his own path trying to save Jason. Koriand'r and Blackfire went their route, going beating down things looking for clues using organized crime. And then Barbara and Dick are split off as well, and Komand'r comes in a little bit to help Dick in his thing. So I appreciate that they actually found something for everyone to do, and it wasn't just it wasn't a ridiculous thing for some people to do. Like I think in the last episode, what they gave Gar to do with Dick, that investigative stuff where he's basically just moving around. They weren't really using Gar. I do appreciate that they explain more of Blackfire's backstory, and I don't mind that they're trying to redeem her or explain her or contextualize her. It still doesn't make what Koriand'r's decision earlier make any sense, because she didn't know that, the audience didn't know that, so they needed to write a different way for her to get out. And they, like, the writers obviously knew that's what they were going to do later on, but they can't just make a decision later on in previous episodes based upon future knowledge that they haven't told the audience. That makes no sense. But anyway, so we get some backstory about why she killed her parents, which now makes sense. It doesn't really explain why she killed her boyfriend. But Starfire's
we might get that later on, I guess. I don't know.
Starfire's
she might be some evil, like, destroy the universe type of guy. Who knows?
Maybe. So it does explain why she killed her parents or usurped the throne. And that's where you were talking about earlier, where the 51% comes in. If you some decisions, and I thought that was a piece of good writing as well, because it's true. In life, some decisions aren't much better than some good decisions aren't much better than the bad decisions, and 51%. And that's sometimes that's how we have to choose to make when we're making decisions in the real world. So I appreciated that. I also appreciated the back and forth with Barbara and Dick when they were using Oracle. Now, I don't necessarily like the fact that the Oracle was a character and it was Barbara, and now Oracle is just a machine, which is basically like OMAC. I'm not sure if you know OMAC from the comics. It's just like this all-seeing eye thing. So they mashed together two things. Oracle was Barbara's character after she got shot, and then and OMAC was this machine that nearly destroyed the Earth. I don't know all the specifics of the OMAC storyline, but I think that they're mashing those together. They also had a very similar machine in the Dark Knight Returns, or sorry, not Dark Knight Returns, the second Batman movie. I forget what it's called. Dark Knight. Dark Knight. Yeah. So they have some back and forth. Apparently, Crane gets inside of Oracle, and I think what Dick says to her when he gets back, it makes sense, and I understand why he's upset. So, like, because Crane wants them to destroy it, right? That's why he set them up. That's why he almost killed. That's why he almost killed Dick in that setup, because he expected them to turn it on because he knew that Batman used it to catch him the first time. I'm not sure how we got that information. Maybe because when they turned it on, the NSA came after them, and then there's a public record of the fact that NSA came after him. So maybe that's how he knew he learned about it, because that's the only thing that would make sense, because he didn't know about Bruce, or, well, you know what? It's possible that Jason told him as well. It's possible that Jason told him also, because at this point he has Jason's knowledge. So anyway, he goes in there. He manipulates Barbara into destroying Oracle, and Dick's kind of scolding of her. Again, it makes sense. It's like you're being emotional. We used our only tool. We could have used that information. We could have used the fact that he's in the system to work against him. And I think you acted rashly here, and I get his point there. I mean, I sort of understand what she was doing, but I do think that was sort of a short-sighted move, especially since before he even got there, he was like, okay, he's in the system, we can use that, and she didn't even wait to see what he was going to suggest. She just destroyed the system. I mean, they figure out a way to track Crane later on by putting their heads together, but I think that was a piece of good writing, I think, in that scene as well. And I think that the whole plot with Blackfire and Koriand'r was also well written. So it explains why Dick doesn't want to work with Mob. Like, at first you're like, oh, of course you want to work with the Mob. You work with whoever you want to, whoever you need to get to the results you need, right? The ends justify the means, right? So they get the information that they need to eventually, but they also learn a very terrible lesson about people that you associate with. Because when that mom shoots that guy in the head, it's definitely, it's earlier like
that's his son. That's her son.
Yeah,
actually,
like I said, her son.
Oh, he's the FBI informant. I'm like, whoa.
I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
And it definitely shows earlier, like like I said, the difference between Disney Plus and HBO. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, she shot it. I wasn't expecting that, and I was expecting maybe she was going to melt her hand. I didn't expect. I didn't,
That was actually pretty awesome.
or burn her.
Yeah.
Burn her hand. I wasn't expecting her to incinerate her with her rage, but she did. It's like,
Yeah, that was pretty dark, but actually pretty awesome
yeah.
too.
So yeah, she doesn't have any compunction about killing, unlike Batman in Dick. I think she's killed people in the previous seasons as well.
Mm.
So, and she definitely has she's definitely far more emotional than in like rage filled than the other people on the Titans. So yeah, she incinerates her
Yeah.
before she gets the information that she needs to, which it seems like another stupid Koriand'r decision. And then she, like, when she makes these decisions, they write in the thing that she made a stupid decision. Like when she gets to the car last week, and she sees Blackfire is gone. She does say F because she knows it was stupid, and here she knows it's stupid, but I think she's a very passionate woman.
Yes.
so
Yeah, kind of shocked Blackfire in a lot of ways too. She's like, "Bravo, you did what you had to do," and yeah, and you know,
Blackfire's reaction to what happened when the son got shot was also classic. She was like, "Oh, shocking!" Just like
yeah, I know. I know that John mentioned that's like his favorite character right now. I think I'm warming up to that. I thought it's Koriand'r, but like that. I mean, this episode really kind of sold me on Blackfire in a lot of ways. So yeah, that was very interesting.
She's a good addition, and she gets to suit up for the battle at the end when they put
Right.
their pieces together. There's a little bit of writing that they probably should have. So like Freon was phased out in air conditioners decades ago because it put holes in the ozone layer. So it's unlikely that it would have been some other coolant. But putting that aside, they put their information together, and they find the location of Crane's hideout, and they destroy his manufacturing base. And he loses some of his partners, his crime lord partners, because they're feeling pretty high on themselves because Batman's out of the picture, and I think it's an ice cream distributor, right? Where because the guys eating ice cream there. So they destroy the plant. Jason and Crane escape, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. But like I said, it stitches together well. Gar was there for the fight, but Gar is also like doing his own investigation inside of Jason's room, and then he meets up with Molly at the end of the episode. So they give Gar was there for the action, but he also give Gar another plot where that'll pay off later on. And I appreciated what they did with Gar this episode is also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that definitely is. I do have one question about Gar. Is that did he in any other seasons change into like an animal or anything like that?
So,
I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, that is frustrating, right? Like that's one thing that I ding. I can't really ding this episode for. It's more about dinging the show. Like,
okay,
they have Gar there because he is one of the Titans that people expect to be there, but making him transform is very expensive. It's a very expensive production wise. But if you're not going to do it, don't have him on the team, because like he would transform at this point of in his development. What they're explaining is that he could transform, but they really only have him transform into a tiger, like a green tiger, instead of like other things. In this episode, he just made one of his hands a tiger's hand. But he's Beast Boy, not, and it's not like Tiger Boy. So they really need to. I don't know if they're saving some of their budget for later on in the season, and they're going to have him transform like crazy or whatever. Because I can understand having him transform just once or twice in an episode would blow up a budget for the episode, but then you should have chosen. I mean, there are other Titans. I know people expect Beast Boy to be there because he's like one of the main Titans in what should we call it? But like, don't do a Titan show then, or figure something else out. Spread because having him. I mean, you can have him turn into a smaller animal. Like, he turns into all kinds of animals that are useful for the fight. He doesn't have to be a big animal. It just has to be green. So.
Yeah, but on the flip side, though, that effect of Koriand'r basically melting the boss lady, doesn't that also cost a lot of money to do?
That also costs a lot of money. So that's probably why that's probably where they spent the money for special effects in this episode. Because that looked good. that looked exactly. That looked very convincing. And they used a little bit of special effects with her using her powers to deflect bullets and stuff like that. Special effects on Connor, bullets ricocheting off of him. But I think the thing that probably cost the most in this episode was her melting that woman in this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I like the episode. I hope next week will be just as good, but who knows?
Yeah. We're halfway through though with Titans. Are we for season 3? I think that's 13. Is it 13?
I think we're halfway through. Yeah.
Okay.
So we shall see where things go. We'll Tim Drake. Well, at this point, Rachel hasn't showed up yet. Tim Drake hasn't been addressed yet. Gar's investigation. We'll see where that goes, and we still don't know whether or not they're going to try to redeem Jason, because right now he still seems irredeemable. So we shall see. Well, any final thoughts?
Overall, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the inconsistency of Titans, and so I think that I just kind of like am one of those fans that's like, I have to keep watching in some ways to kind of see what's happening week to week, and it's a nice kind of thing to have to watch on a Thursday night, and things like that. But if there's other type of content that people are interested in and things like that, I think that they can kind of maybe skip that for a week and then watch your other content. But I'm kind of like locked into Titans on Thursday nights now.
All right. Well, that's what we think about the episode, but we are really interested in what you guys think. So please comment down below. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you next week. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.